Hey there, Exalt, Saltydayn here, and want to make a quick update on the Volcanic Fissure of Snaking build I've been playing for about 1 week now into Mercenaries League instead of Self-Found. So keep in mind, there might be some decisions made here out of necessity and not necessarily because they're the best decisions. For example, my axe right now, I tried to craft a secondary one that has flat T1 and percent T1, and then we'll finish the craft, because I could spend easily like a few divines on this. I mean, I have enough technically right now to finish this X and just make it better with better suffixes, but honestly, it's not needed. I can easily do every T17 map with every single mod, or most of the mods at least, and T6.5s as well, so I'm technically good to go on this. So just keep that in mind, that some of these items are not perfect, or they might not be even optimal or whatever, but I just want to share what I've been doing so you get an understanding of what's going on here. I'll show you this in PoB because I think it's just kind of easier. You can just import my character if you don't believe me that those are my items. I've slightly tweaked and optimized a few things. For example, if some gem doesn't have the correct quality yet, or if they're like level below because I'm just leveling them or just flip the gem or whatever. So keep that in mind. Also keep in mind that the number here probably is not really too accurate. This is just mostly me, like obviously slightly padding the PoB. There are a few reasons for this though. I'm not doing this to just show up a bigger number than others, but to slightly compare between the versions I've been building with, so I know approximately what is a better upgrade and what is lesser upgrade, basically based on those numbers. Keep in mind that all war cries will never really perfectly align to give you all the uptime or the recent cast or whatever for certain things. This here is the config I've been using for the critical strike turns in PoB. This was a rune graph fix, which I'm no longer using to utilize hatred actually right now. And in some stuff, my merc gives me the exposure here, then the scourge, culling damage from him, then the Chaos binding to convert the physical damage taken, which isn't kind of accurate, but it slightly works. Then we have the Merc Curse, which is a limited weakness on level 25, and then we have Merc Aura Fix, which is also a level 25 haste, and we have the Inspiring Cry for 25% damage, which isn't honestly anything. Like, it's very low. It's like 1 million or whatever, not even. And we have 5% increased damage taken from the Annoyed, which is Stormforged. So Stormweaver. It's Snowforge and Stormweaver. So about my skills here, the setup I'm using right now is I'm going Crit, and I'm also going Trinity. You will see why in a second. I'm using Pulverize over the Elemental attack damage skill support because I don't have the Awakened version, which would make me Elemental Reflect Demon, which is really good, honestly. I'm still partially physical of 99% conversion just to get some bleed in there and poison for my I forgot the name. The Yoke of Suffering. There we go. For the Yoke of Suffering, I can probably just take let my merc do that, but it's usually fine to do this myself. I think I'm not currently actually doing any bleed or poison, but I plan to once I get the tattoo. So that's the reason. Then we have Seismic Cry here. I'm casting all of these myself, right? All of these War Cries I'm just casting myself all the time. I think it's fine if you have the setup I'm doing. I'm using Admonisher as a anoint here, which gives us 50% War Cry speed. So it's quite fine, honestly. It just takes me like half a second or whatever to cast these every like 10 seconds. So it's honestly not that difficult, and it gives us a lot of damage. Right now, this bit is kind of slowish because I've sacrificed a bit of attack speed just for more damage, and I think it works quite well, but it can work better. The reason being here is I dropped Blood Rage. It doesn't give me too much damage anyway, so it's fine. And I've switched from Rite of Ruin into Defy Pain, just to have some more tankiness for the T16.5 maps, especially for Originator packs or the Eater packs with like the spike shooting thingies that they spawn. I think it works quite well, honestly. It's really good for defense, so that's why I chose to play like this, even though it's kind of slow. So if you were switching to this, you would experience a very kind of slow and more methodical, meticulous gameplay compared to other builds who are utilizing more attack speed on their weapon, using Blood Rage all the time, using Rite of Ruin, all these things just give you a bit more attack speed, probably like 50% more than I'm doing right now. So their attack rate is probably like 2 point something or 2.3, whatever. So just keep that in mind, and I'm just playing purposefully with lower attack speed here, just to get some more damage out. Now, here we have the setup I've been showcasing a lot in the past. I've tried to advertise Tarot of Beauty with Guardian's Blessing and Hatred. The only thing you need to make this work is you just have to go grab a cluster, or at least I currently have to grab a cluster, and I'm going with the Mastery here. just to lower my skill cost a bit more, to have a more chill time with my leech, and just being able to just cast more cries and then spamming my attacks. It just feels better. You probably don't need all of this. It just feels good, in my opinion, to play like this. I'm using this to just have permanent hatred. The thing is here, if you hit a rare unique enemy, you have a 25% chance to spawn a Purity Sentinel, or just if you kill something, the same thing happens as well. And you can just click hatred, and it's basically on for the entire map. As long as you keep attacking enemies or keep killing enemies, both work, right? As long as you do this, you will have permanent uptime on hatred, which is really, really good. Right now, this would give me about like 30% more damage in this PoB right here. Again, can be optimized a lot more. That's the only thing I can get out of this, but it's still quite cool, in my opinion, quite strong. Again, you can optimize your PoB technically with the rune graft, which I've talked about in the config before here, right? With the rune graft, you can get 50%, which makes you skip all of this here and this as well, and you just leave out hatred and just play with Herald of Ash and Herald of Purity. But again, it's just slightly less damage. Also, I want to talk about two things real quick. I'm using this mastery here, which is really good. 15% life helps me a lot in most maps. Just heal myself up real quick if I really need the health. I'm using this wheel here, which only gives some Warcry duration and buff effect, which honestly isn't too bad as I'm casting 3 myself. However, I have contemplated and used this wheel in the past, where I went into like Natural Authority, went through the cooldown back here, and go into Escalation. Now, there's a few things I want to mention about this. First of all, it's slightly less cost efficient than the 3 wheel up here, because it takes you 4 points to even reach Natural Authority to gain sort of like the same damage, bit more maybe, but less per point. The cooldown nodes here are slightly misleading, because this is just PoB assuming you have perfect uptime on everything, all the perfect attack speed, all the perfect cooldown, etc. So these will give you damage if your attack speed is quite high, but they are not like real damage. Yeah, just keep that in mind. And also escalation. If you use this, you want Warcry buff duration, because every Warcry buff usually is active for like a second or something, and you have to be continuously affected by those buffs to actually gain this buff. It is possible. You can play around this. I've done this. It's super annoying. So unless you have like multiple buffs going on on yourself, like constantly being on yourself, and you can manage these, you can use this. Otherwise, I probably would just stay away from this. It might just be a bit like petty in terms of like PoB. That's why I'm not using this anymore. As you can see, I'm crit as well, because I've gotten the crit helmet here, which is quite nice. That's also why the PoB fix is in place here. But let's go with the remaining skills before I show my gear. We have Auto Exertion here for Intimidating Cry, then Battle Mage's Cry, which casts Punishment, and I just have Blood and Silent here because I have a 5 link. It does not need to be in there. You can run a 4 link, just run those 4, and this in a separate socket. It does not need to be in here. And we're also running Berserk just as an empty socket. Again, Berserk can basically be active all the time. Once you reach max rage, just click Berserk. Even before, once the second Berserk can be clicked, just click Berserk. It should usually be fine if you're continuous attacking, because your attacks just generate so much rage all the time. It's pretty good in my opinion. Then to the items real quick. As you've seen already, my mediocre axe, honestly, it's just 700 DPS. I can probably reach like 800. Also, you've seen, like, this is terrible of an item, but I'm gonna fix this in the future, don't worry. We have accuracy here, which is completely useless because I'm utilizing hits can't be evaded. I'm a firm defender of this choice, that there are multiple reasons for this to be good. First of all, we don't really need the Hybrid Fist, which is one of the rarest bots in the game to hit on T1, by the way. It's like 25% weight or something. It's crazy, right? It takes way more time, way more effort to create a good accesses all of these 3 on T1, or at least T2 Hybrid or whatever, and you're not getting too much. And you also now have to get at least like 2, more like 3 slots of your items which have accuracy on them, which also makes gearing way more difficult, in my opinion, to even be Chaos Rest Captain and have all these things like intelligence and dexterity, etc., right? It's just so frustrating. And you also have to waste points usually on this wheel, which is another like 5 points at least. With the mastery, it's 6. It's like so much effort goes into this. And then if you run a map which has less accuracy, you're also losing damage again. So I don't really see the point. I really prefer hits can't be evaded. I think it's an absolutely fantastic craft on every melee build that has kind of a struggle to actually get accuracy, or has just no real way to get this on their natural pathing or whatever, which is the case for the Zerker. It might not be the case if you're a right tree enjoyer, so you have lots of decks, you can just go into any of the accuracy nodes here real quick, grab the mastery and be done with this. This usually is more effective for those, but just keep that in mind that it might not be the best solution all the time. I would just really prefer the skill, the craft here. As also, we can avoid any sort of like altar that reduces our accuracy. We don't care about accuracy mods. We don't care about blinding or whatever, all kinds of bullshit. It's really, really powerful, honestly. It's not just 100% accuracy all the time, right? It's just way more powerful, in my opinion. Then, as I mentioned, the helmet, just reduce mana cost of attacks and physical damage taken as lightning. You can also take physical damage taken as fire here, which I should technically do with all the maxers I have. But keep in mind, you can also run the mana reservation here. That also works technically. And also you can convert this modifier, the skills crit warcry type of modifier, from this base to another. There's a really good guide from Crouching Tuna on this. I probably have this linked in the description as well, so might give it a look how you can transfer this modifier to the Giant Slayer helmet, the best base in the game for armor. Body armor, just high armor, generally speaking, nothing more, just high armor, decent res. Nothing more to add. I'm also using Fortify here, which also gives me 20 Fortify all the time, so I can skip the entire cluster on the tree, and just +1 to max resistances. Gauntlet here for code conversion, craft code conversion. Keep in mind, if you go full conversion, you're fully elemental, so any physical leech mod does not work anymore, and you also can't apply bleeds or poisons to the enemy, which might be interesting for Yoke of Suffering. Then here I'm also using Extinguish, just to have a bit of an easier time with elemental ailments. It doesn't fully work all the time. It just makes it slightly more enjoyable, in my opinion. You can also go for attack speed or whatever here. It really isn't too important. On the boots, I'm using the region one and action speed, because as I said before, I have played Rite of Ruin before. I've ditched this since then, and the region honestly is quite nice. It's just a nice little extra in terms of like region. I'm usually recovering most of my life with the Warcry Mastery, which I've mentioned before, the 50% health one, but it's still good. Also keep in mind, the mastery only triggers if you cast them yourself, not via auto-exert, so also important to mention. Just some general normal rings, just life, res, some intelligence in here with the mana craft on them, and then the belt has the Warcry's cannot travel exert skill, or Warcry's cannot exert travel skills, this way around, with just some elemental damage, life, and res. Again, gear isn't too good, it's decent, it's alright. Instant life last. We're running a reduced curse effect on the Granite Flask, just to have some more easy time with some curse applied to me. Usually, again, that's not too much of a problem, but it can help fighting a bit better with elemental weakness, etc. on yourself. Then just movement speed flask. Again, we're leap slamming, so it's not really too needed, but it just helps getting out of danger sometimes and just makes whipping more chill. But again, not really needed technically. I'm running Prismatic Tincture here, which gives me a lot of damage right now, as you can see. Right, that's why this PoB is slightly padded. Just keep that in mind. Like, this is just this ton of damage. You can usually have this up whenever you need to, so for every like kind of like boss, which this is set to, right? Every kind of unique boss. And I can just one-shot like every Synthesis map boss, basically, for example. I just go in there, activate the Tincture, pop my Warcries, slam it once, dies, I go out. It's insane. So that's also why I have this active and not just deactivated, because that's what this is about, right? Of course, if I uncheck this and I want to do a mapping PoB, I have more than enough damage for this, right? It doesn't fucking matter. If I'm doing mapping, this will be more than enough to just one-shot every single mob on that map. It doesn't matter at all, but with this, for bosses, it's way, way more chill. And then just a gold flask, honestly, I might use a mana flask sometimes if I have mods that prevent my leech or reduce recovery or all kinds of bullshit. I always have this in my inventory, just in case. Now, for the clusters, let me just show you this in the tree here real quick. We have one cluster over here that I dropped, which is really nice, really good Synth Jewel with +1 max fire res, some ore res, some attack speed, some leech, really good in my opinion. Then over here, I'm using a Inspired Learning. You can also use the Ritual Jewel here, which I also have, but I just prefer the Inspired Learning. It's just nice to have some buffs, honestly. It's super chill, just more damage, more speed most of the time. Then the last jewel up here is just another jewel again. It's just some maximum life, some crit motive, some fist damage. Nothing major here. You might want to change this for a max rest jewel. Again, I just prefer to have more life, especially for the Defy Pain round I'm running right now, because that is depending on your life. For the cluster here, I've chosen to go Fuel the Fight, Graceful Execution, and Smite the Weak. This is mainly because Smite the Weak will always be in the back spot here, so you can have the Fuel the Fight and Graceful Execution up front to just take them and just run with this. It gives me a slight bit less crit chance than the other one, the Surefoot something. I don't know what it was, but this also gives me Dex and Int, which I really need, so I gladly take this one instead of the Surefoot, whatever it was. I forgot the name, I'm sorry. And of course, the Samana Leech is quite nice because I can then dip, or I can ditch my old jewel, which also gave me like physical leeches mana. It's just slightly annoying to run this, so this is way more chill. Then we're using Provocateur with Lead by Example and Warning Call plus Mob Mentality, just to give us all the charges all the time. So I'm constantly at full charges all the time. I have a lot of armor as a bonus. I'll also use Seismic Cry on top for more armor, which is quite nice. We always have Onslaught, and I also have some nice crit chance and crit mode against taunted enemies, which is again not every single enemy in the game, just the ones in range of my war cries. Then, as I mentioned before, some reservation here. I'm using a Maxwell's Jewel here again. Just make sure that's good. Keep in mind you can change this resistance from like fire to lightning, cold, whatever you want to do. So it's not really needed too much. Also keep in mind that you might want to change this around to just go for like cold res or whatever res you need in case you have like a bunch of lightning and cold res, whatever in your gear. You can just change this if you choose this pathing. It might not be the most optimal. Again, I just wanted this for two reasons. First of all, life, which is for me kind of important, and secondly for the cost reduction here, it just helps manage my mana cost a lot more. With the ring crafts right now, I'm pretty fine. If you have, for example, a Headhunter equipped or Mage Blood, this can also help you manage your cost because you're losing one ring craft to the Warcries cannot be exerted stuff. And yeah, that's basically all I'm doing here in terms of like pathing. Again, if there are any questions about this, if you have any feedback or whatever, feel free to tell me in the comments or join my live stream and ask me directly about this. I would highly, highly encourage you not to just look at someone's PoB or whatever they are doing, because numbers like this can be highly misleading. I just care about these numbers here in like for me to compare my builds, right? To compare my build versions, because I know like if all of the things that I can reasonably assume to be up all the time, for example, for this node right here, I wouldn't set this to the maximum 60. I would set like 3 seconds or 2 seconds just to be sure that this is actually what it gives me and not just some fluke or whatever, because I will never have the 6-second uptime here all the time. That's not possible, right? I'll have 2 or 3 seconds on bosses, yeah, but afterwards I probably won't because I just want to hate the bosses instead of just constantly rebuffing myself Warcries just to optimize this kind of like 5% more damage node here. So yeah, just keep that in mind that it's not like entirely accurate here. This is not my goal to make a perfectly accurate PoB configuration. I just prefer to have some configuration I can reasonably assume to be up in certain moments to compare different things between each other or just towards each other. And yeah, also keep in mind, if you don't activate your hate in this build, your Trinity will not be active, so Trinity might not be the best solution here. Again, you can just use augmented damage with attack skill support. That works totally fine. Isn't too little damage either. But yeah, that's all I have to say, honestly. All I have to tell you about this specific setup right now. Again, any questions, just feel free to ask me about anything. I'm happy to assist you. I hope you have a wonderful day. See ya. Until next time, good loot, and bye-bye.